I truly believe that you win life's lottery when you were born, and especially if you're born in this great country, the United States of America.
Lisa Williams, thank you for bringing us into your home. This is one of the first ones, we talked about on other prior people that we've had on about like this season we're going to go travel. So you're like our guinea pigs, and you are going to be traveling, but you're the closest that we're going to have. So if we're missing anything, we had a chance to go back home and get, or we're local or whatever. So thanks for bringing us in here. We really appreciate it. One of the things that we're doing it this year too is we had some T-shirts made up, and so I got two colors. I got a gray and a green, and the sizes aren't really. You might have to. So front and back. So if you can just choose whichever one you want at the end here.
Okay.
Take your pick. Either green or gray.
Being an Army brat, I think I'm gonna pick the green.
Yeah. That's the popular choice. I haven't had anybody yet do the gray, so we're gonna have to adjust our order next time. But like I said, thanks for coming on with us. I guess I would just want to start off. I've done my research, and first thing I want to talk about is your childhood. I know if we can talk about where you grew up at first, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. So I was born in Saigon, Vietnam.
Okay.
It is now Ho Chi Minh City. But for those of us who, I guess, side on the non-communist side, it will always be Saigon.
Gotcha.
And my motto was always, the South will rise again.
Right.
So I was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and I came to the United States at the age of 6.
Okay.
Through the love and courage and bravery of an American soldier by the name of George Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
So at the age of 3, I contracted polio. And at that time, we lived in a small village. And of course, there was no medical care. And of course, no one knew really what polio was anyway.
Well, that would be one of them. That's what I was going to ask you, if you can kind of describe what polio is to the people like me that's not really familiar with it.
So polio is basically a virus that attacks the muscles.
Okay.
And it can either permanently kill the muscle or partially, affect the muscles.
Okay.
And if you look back in the early 50s, 40s, part of the 60s, you will see a lot about children or people who had the iron lungs. They had to use the iron lungs to breathe because
Gotcha.
the polio would attack their lungs, and so they couldn't breathe, and so they had to be in the machine to help them breathe.
Mm.
I was one of the fortunate ones in that it didn't affect any of my vital organs, but it did affect my left leg. And so my left leg is weaker and it's shorter than my right leg, and so I wear a leg brace.
Okay.
And so with that, I just had to endure it because really there was no vaccinations at the time for small villages, people living there. So I contracted polio, and at the age of 6, my father, who's an American soldier, met my mother and brought my mother and I to the United States.
Okay.
And
I remember reading somewhere that he actually had done like 2 deployments. Like the first deployment is when he met your mother.
yes.
And then so he came back again for basically the decision that he wanted to get you guys back home with him. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's true. So he did his first tour of duty, and before he was able to get the paperwork and bring my mother and I to the United States, he was called back.
Okay.
And so, what's amazing about my father, George Duncan, is that he signed up for a second tour back to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And
which we all know that's very significant, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is. I talk about the fact that, who signs back up to
Right.
go back to get
Exactly.
shot at in Vietnam?
Yeah.
But that's what makes a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who says, I love you. I'm going to come back, and we're going to come back as a family.
Yeah.
And he had to serve his entire second tour of duty there before he could go back to the United States. So I guess we're very fortunate that he, made it through.
What was his job? You remember what his MOS was? Or?
So his MOS when he was in Vietnam was signals.
Okay.
So he was communications. And later in life, he switched to EOD, the explosive ordnance disposal.
Yeah.
And I always joke about he still has all his fingers, but he can't hear anything.
One of the job risks. Yeah. So I can imagine that's got to be a pretty big change, especially that. Well, maybe it's not as big a change being that young. Maybe it's. I mean, do you think it's a bigger change the older you are to have to go to a different country? I mean, assuming that you had to learn a new language, or did you already have some English?
No, matter of fact, my mother didn't speak much English either. So when my dad proposed to her in Vietnam, he actually brought a translator. So, to make sure that the right words were coming through.
Right.
And so my mother didn't speak much English. And of course, I spoke no English at all. And I learned through TV. I learned through kindergarten. But I remember my mom telling me the story when she came to the United States. The translation was a little tough on her because, she would ask my dad, "What do you want for lunch?" And he said, "Well, I'd like to, a sandwich with potato chips." And so she brought the sandwich, and she had potato chips in the sandwich.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what he asked for.
Yeah.
And when my parents first came back to the States, my father had bought a trailer. I mean, my dad was like an E03.
Right.
He didn't have much money.
Sure.
So he had bought a trailer, and that's where they lived. And when she saw the trailer, she says, "I'm not living on a train." And he said, no, there's furniture in there and everything. So, the culture and the translation of the English language, I think it's endearing how they survived that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with any marriage at the beginning, everybody's going to have rough patches, but, having that barrier along with it too, I'm sure was a pretty good challenge. So it's just a test to their marriage, and it working out. So when you came back, you were 8 years old when you guys came to the States. Where was the first place that you came? Where was he stationed at? Or did he get out, or was he still active duty when you came back?
He was still active duty. So I was 6 years old, and the first place I came to, my dad was stationed in Fairbanks, Alaska. So I came from the tropical weather of 100 degrees.
Mom, what did you get me into?
To Alaska, minus 50 degrees.
Sure, yeah.
And but when you're 6 years old, you endure, you survive, and everything was quite an adventure.
Yeah.
And I am very fortunate to have such wonderful parents. My mother encouraged me to only speak English because she wanted me to be able to understand everybody. And she knew we were in America, and we were very fortunate with the opportunity to be in America. And she wanted me to be an American. So we spoke English.
Yeah.
My father is just an incredible man who really cherished education because he was very poor. He grew up with migrant farmer parents, and going into the military was how he left the little town.
Sure. And
so education was very important to him, as well as my mother, of course, because, being in Vietnam and being a female, it would have been no chance for me to have an education.
Yeah, back in Vietnam, I've heard you talk about being a female in Vietnam in prior discussions that you've had, and I had no idea that the disparity was so significant. And I'm not putting any religion down, but it almost to me sounds like an Islamic religion where females were kind of second class. Is that the kind of treatment that was back in Vietnam, or was it just females don't do this kind of thing? They don't go and get education. I mean, can you explain a little bit more what that culture is like?
I would say not Islamic in that Vietnamese people, the religion there, it's interesting. The religion in Vietnam was mainly Catholic,
okay,
but also Buddhism.
Right.
So one could be Catholic and Buddhist.
Okay.
Catholic was more the religion. Buddhism is more of a spiritual belief. And so I grew up in Vietnam, Catholic, Buddhist.
Okay.
Um, so in Vietnam, it's just the culture is that, the men make the rules. The culture is, females do not go to college. Why would you? Because your job is to basically get married, have children, raise children, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
It's a wonderful thing. I'm a mother, and it's the most wonderful title that I have, and that is mother. But there would be no reason for me to, go to college. And women did not go to college back then. It's different now.
Yeah.
You'll see.
I imagine even in the States, there's still some of that probably, I'm not sure when, but, I remember my mother talking about, you're about the same age, so probably not. But I guess you didn't get any of that in America, that there was no, you're a female, you can't do that kind of thing.
No. I am, that's why I am so proud of America. Growing up, again, I have polio, I live with it. And again, that could be considered, I'm a handicapped person, being female, being a minority female. But, my mother instilled in me that, America, there are limitless opportunities.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to have shown me discrimination, I didn't see it. I may have just taken it more as, okay, this is a challenge.
Yeah.
I think, for instance, and I'll give you an example. When I graduated from UAH, chemical engineering, and I worked at Morton Thiokol, was my first job with Rocket Motors. And I shared an office with this 40-year-old man, and I came into the office and he said, you're here working and you're taking a man's job because after a year you'll probably have a child and leave.
So what year was this?
This was 85, 86, my first job. But I took that as a challenge. I didn't take it as, you're a guy, you're discriminating against me because I'm a female. Because
maybe that was his understanding of how things work. Maybe he had plenty of females that come in there. He's like, you know what? You're kind of wasting your time here. We know you're going to leave.
Exactly.
Maybe it wasn't like
exactly.
Yeah.
You are so right, Bill, because it's people see what they know.
Right.
And so that was a challenge for me to show him, no, I'll be here for a lot longer than a year, and then we became the best of friends because he would do things to challenge me, and I saw that. But the point that you bring up is really great in that some of us do have preconceived notions. You might call them discrimination, maybe, but we only, tend to believe what we see. So if you work in an environment where you don't see many female engineers, you're not going to expect many. Just like a great example, when people hear that I'm in a band, what's the first thing that you think of that I do in the band?
Well, I know what you do, so it's kind of hard for me not to think.
but I will tell you, 99% of the time people go, oh, you must be the lead singer. I'm not the lead singer, I'm the guitar player. But people don't see many female guitar players. They see female singers. And so the first thing that pops in their head is, oh, you must be the singer. And when I tell them I'm the guitar player, they're like, oh. And I use that as a way of saying, it's fine because that's all you've seen. And that's okay. Now I've shown you that there's more than that. Sometimes when I tell people that I graduated from college, they're like, well, did you do business? Well, no, I was an engineer. So again, that opens people's eyes. So I don't see it as discrimination. I see that's just what they've seen. So, I'm happy to show them that there's a different light.
Sure.
And it's okay. And I don't think of it as discrimination. I haven't experienced it because I think I've been able to prove myself as someone who is educated, hardworking, doing the best job I can. And when you have that, who can argue with you? You know?
Well, I got a two-part question for you. And so I guess the first part is, do you think Americans take for granted what they have, since they've grown up here, knowing that, you have your background and you've seen what it could have been or whatever, and then coming over here and seeing all the opportunities and seeing Americans take it for granted? And the second part of that, and you can answer it either way, how much does that frustrate you? Because I think I know the answer.
Yeah.
But
It sometimes it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
It really does, because people talk about there's racism in the United States.
So I mean, I'll say it. I'm sure there's some type of racism. I don't think it's nowhere near to the extent as whoever wants to act like it is. When I say racist, I think it's more prejudice than racist. And, because everybody has their own thought. When you see somebody, it's just like you said, you have a thought by just somebody's appearance.
Mm-hmm.
It's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can call it racist if you want to get on the media and cause tensions between people, but I don't think it's a negative connotation. I mean, people look at me and think, okay, well, that guy's black. I mean, it just happens with everybody.
Yeah.
And just people put a tag on it and say, well, it's this. But what you do is you think that, but you're also open to like, hey, I want to learn about this person and see if I'm right, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and when you say, do we as Americans take America for granted? Part of that is what I mean in that this country, I mean, it doesn't matter what color, what size you are, anything. Sure. You have the opportunities. And so I'm frustrated for some people who don't take those opportunities because, you have one life to live. And man, what a gift it is to be born. What a gift it is to be sitting here and talking to each other. What a gift it is to get to know each other and to be alive anywhere, but to be alive in this great country where, I wanted to be an engineer. Okay. Put in work, did it. Did it, I always wanted to be in a band, did it. I've always wanted to travel and all those things, just get out there and do it. But it's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard work. It's not easy.
I do believe, your upbringing has something to do with your motivation and stuff. But, there has to become some point in your life, I could pick an age from, what I think, but, there's going to be some type of age that you have to come to realization that you make the decisions for your life and you can't blame anybody else anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can be pushed down, but at the same time, you can push yourself back up. You can take that energy that's pushing you down and focus it somewhere to motivate you. I know it's hard to do. I think we've all gone through stuff in our life that's been, hard to get through, but I don't like hearing people talk about their background at a certain age. And I'm not sure what age I think that is yet, whether it's 15, 16, 17, 20, whatever. Yeah. But, when I hear people that are grown that talk about, man, my dad beat me and this and that, and I went through this, and, I went through a lot of stuff too. I get it. I'm not downplaying what you went through, but at some point you have to take responsibility for your own actions. Well, or inactions. I've
heard your story, and it's an incredible story of how you have really worked to become the man you are today. And
I work at it every day. I mean, it's honestly, I work at it all the time. I'm always trying to improve, and sometimes I don't have that in the forefront of my mind. Hey, I need to improve today. It might take me a little bit, but I think the person I am today is a lot different than I was 5 years ago, and I think surely a lot different than I was 20 years ago. So it's just a learning process. But if you don't want to take that, motivation or whatever you want to call it to improve yourself or try to be a better person than other people, what's your point? You're going to sit on the couch and, what are you going to do with your life? Complain about it, or are you going to go do something about it?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan.
Me too.
I am a huge Jocko Willink fan. And one of his greatest things that I've come to realize is that, it's about discipline and not motivation.
Mm.
And I used to think it was motivation, but then I realized it's like I said, motivation is fickle. I might be motivated today, but tomorrow something gets into my head and I'm not motivated. But as long as I'm disciplined to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, I'm disciplined enough to go and work out, and disciplined enough to, plan and go and forth and do what I need to do to get accomplished the things that I want accomplished. That's what it takes.
Yeah.
And so that's why, again, it does break my heart sometimes when I see Americans take all of these opportunities for granted, because, we are a country where you can be poor, work hard, and have money and be rich. You can lose it all and be poor, but you can build it back up again.
Yep. Takes time.
Yeah. And I believe we're the only country that you can do that in.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter where you come from, because, you look at my parents. My dad, was born into migrant farmers. And, he was dirt poor. My mother, we lived in the village where there were mud floors. We didn't have any electricity. And, her story is pretty amazing in that she had an arranged marriage. And she didn't want to get married to the person she was supposed to because, I'm not marrying this person. I don't love that person. And so, she ran off and went off to live in Saigon by herself and made a life for herself. And, and when my parents got together, they had nothing.
Yeah.
They tell me stories of when they wanted to go get Dunkin' Donuts, they went through the couch to find, quarters and to see if they could get enough to get donut,
Yeah.
So.
I know what that's like. We sort of, being, private in the Marine Corps, being married, and then, a child coming, we would sell our furniture at pawn stores or pawn shops to be able to eat for a couple of days, So we got to a point where, we had like a kitchen table and maybe a couch and one TV and a bed, because everything else was sold off to be able to eat. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But even then, we lived good.
Right.
There's a lot of people in a lot worse. I had a roof over our head. We had a nice place. It wasn't wrecked or dirty or anything. So being dirt poor like that, we still, if you want to compare yourself to other people, we had it pretty good.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there was always help. We had family. We always, we're here today, so.
That's right.
Well, it couldn't have been too bad.
That's right. Working hard, and here we are today. Yep. It pays off. It really does.
So I know when you were in college, I think you started a band, or you wanted to be in a band. So at what point did you start playing guitar in college to be able to say, hey, I'm going to start a band? How does that happen?
Well, I wanted to be in a band, and I actually auditioned to be in a band.
Was you already playing guitar at that point?
I was playing a little, not a lot, but I thought, wow, that would be fun. And then I realized I can't be in a band. I got college.
Right.
I have to get up and go to classes. I have to, I was working, I think I was working like two part-time jobs and going to college. And as I said, man, I can't do that. I got to make sure I do well in college. Okay, so I have an Asian mom. It's an Asian thing. Asian moms, you're going to go to college. My parents never said you're going to college. It was just expected.
Yeah.
No one had to say that to me.
You have to wake up.
Yeah. It was
same thing.
It was expected. Right. You have to wake up. It's the same thing. And so, and so I, that went by the side. And then, work came along. I traveled a lot with my work. And then my husband and I, Phil and I, got married. And then we started our company, 3D Research Corporation. So there was no time to play any music. So it really wasn't until after we sold our company that I had time to get back into music and play. And
so before you started your company, you spent 15 years as a system engineer?
Yes.
Where was that at?
So I started out with Morton Thiokol working rocket motors.
That's right. Okay.
And that's what started me into the missile programs.
Is that where you met your husband in that time frame? Or?
No, we met much later.
Okay.
So basically my specialty became missile testing. And so I started working at the THAAD project office. And my husband, Phil, was in the THAAD project office. But we really met through some friends. My good friend, Steve and Denise Shipley. Steve and I were friends. And I said, hey, I know you're taking guitar lessons. And I want to get guitar lessons again so I can, get better. And he said, hey, I got this really good teacher, good friend of mine, Phil Williams. So I got Phil's number, called him up, and I said, hey, I want to take lessons. And so the story is that basically I took lessons from him. He charged me $30 an hour, which was so expensive at the time. Right. And so when I ran out of the money there, I traded him a punching bag and punching lessons because I was doing karate at the time. Mm. And then when that money ran out, I figured I'd have to marry him to continue my guitar lessons. Yeah. And so that's how we got together.
Sounds like it worked out pretty good.
It did.
Would you happen to know a guy named Bruce Rexroad from the THAAD project, do you?
Oh, no.
Okay. I know he was heavily involved. He's a guy that I worked at Dynetics with.
Okay.
He was pretty involved with that program. But yeah, so I was at RTC for about 3.5 years, and I was I did a lot with the THAAD missile defense stuff.
Okay.
Of course, not an engineer side, more of tracking tests, stuff to make sure things went right. So it wasn't as in-depth knowledge as you have.
That's very important. Those things have to work.
It is very important, but it doesn't take as much brain power as being an engineer and doing that kind of stuff, though. So I mean, my first introduction to engineers was Dynetics coming out of the Army, and it was a total different world, and I felt so out of place because being in the military 20 years, there's just a certain way that you communicated with people.
Yeah.
Pretty brash, pretty harsh. For the get it done.
Right.
kind of thing. So when I had gone there, they asked me to run some projects for them. And so I remember the first couple of engineers I met, they're pretty young, early 20s at the time. And so, first couple of days we're kind of feeling each other out. And then one of the days this kid come in, he's about 15 minutes late coming in, when he was supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. And he come in and I'm like, Matt, where you been? And I mean, I guess nobody ever talked to him like that because all the other senior engineers, just very light speaking, no abruptness about them whatsoever. And I just thought, I'm like, man, I am way out of place here. So, which was very good for me because it helped me a lot throughout my civilian professional, endeavors I've had so far. So I'm very grateful to be around those kind of people for one thing, because they taught me just as much as I think I taught them as far as, being accountable for yourselves, taking dates to heart. Everything can always slide. No, not in here. You're going to be here until this is done. So I like I said, I really look up to engineers and the amount of work that it takes to even be an engineer, let alone some of the systems that you guys work on and get them to where they need to be.
Well, I will have to say that I truly respect the people that support engineers and all of us. My first job was at Morton Thiokol, and I was, young, 21-year-old, and I was assigned the Maverick missile production line. And there were so many people there, much older than me, that had been working on that line for a long time. They knew exactly what they were doing. But here it is. They bring in this 21-year-old engineer to be the boss over all of these people who knew a lot more than what I knew. Yeah. But because I was a graduate, I was able to have that position. It's kind of like, I guess, the second lieutenants coming in, or
Sure. Yep.
Pretty much taking over, right? It's like they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Just like me, being an engineer, just graduated, I didn't know what I was doing. So,
but hopefully you had somebody that recognized that and was willing to help you rather than to push you down. Because there's people out there that get real.
Exactly. Here's my point again in that, there are wonderful people in this country, in that, here I am, 21-year-old engineer, just put on the line to be basically managing all of these people. And they were all men. They were all men that worked on the line, the technicians and everything. And yet, you know what? None of them ever treated me with,
Disrespectful.
Disrespectful.
Yeah.
I mean, they respected me, because they knew that I was sincere in what I was trying to do. And, I wasn't going to go in there and really boss them around because I knew that they knew much more than me. But there were technical things that I was able to offer. And so we all worked together very well. And I mean, I think there were like 15 people that were on the line with me, and all men, much older, and they were amazing people.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think a lot of it is sincerity and showing that, the things you do know and things you don't know. But
and being willing to admit what you don't know. I think that's a big part of people, that starting out in a position at the beginning, is having, be willing to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you help me out? I know I'm supposed to be in charge. It's humbling, but I think it's necessary. And I think you gain respect to people too, that you are over, that you have enough guts to say, hey, can you help me out here?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so, when I hear, females talk about man's trying to keep me down or I don't get enough respect as a female, it's like, just be good at what you do.
Yeah.
Be good at what you do. Be sincere. You'll get the respect.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not good at what you do
Right.
and you're in the wrong position
Right.
and you're leading, no, you're not going to get respect, and you shouldn't be there.
Yep.
And
Regardless if you're a woman or a female or a male. Yeah.
yes,
Both ways.
exactly.
So doing those 15 years, well, in that industry, so, obviously I'm married too. Your husband, does he have an engineer background? I know you met him. He did guitar lessons with you, but what's his background?
So my husband, at the time, I took lessons from him, but also we worked at the THAAD project office together. He was government in the contracts arena, and I was a contract engineer. Well,
the reason I asked that question is because I think it's a big step to have the comfort of a job and then say, you know what, let's try to do this on our own. I mean, that's a huge step, because I've been in that position,
yes,
and I haven't had the guts to do it. And I always look up to people that take that step and just willing to, hey, I know it takes a lot of hard work, and I've always been willing to do that, but I was never willing to trade in my security for my family to do that, because I'm like, man, I don't want to fail and let everybody else down, and we have to go back and, really scale back to where we're used to, So I really respect people who's done that. So for you guys, I mean, how did that discussion start? I mean, did you both say, yes, let's do this, or did one have to convince the other one to do it? I mean, that's a pretty big step, I would think.
One of my goals in life was always to have my own company. And my goal was to retire by 40. So during my engineering days, I always did a lot of research into what would it take to start a company? What do you need to do? And, during that time, I looked for mentors. I was scared to go up to somebody and say, hey, will you be my mentor? But I would search for people in the community that were in positions that I wanted to be in. And so I observed them. You might call it stalking, maybe, just observe them, just see, what they were doing and how they did it. And I've always wanted to have my own company. So when Phil and I were married, we'd only been married a year. And I told him, I said, you know what? What would you think about starting a company? And he said, okay. Let's do it.
That's pretty easy.
So one of the talks that I do for groups, leadership, or organizations, I have this talk. It's called the 10 OMGs of business. And the first one basically is, when you start a company, you have to take calculated risk and not chances. And a calculated risk means you need to look at your finances. You need to know what it takes to start the business. You need to know, one of the first questions I ask people when I mentor to them is, how will you make money? And that's not a bad thing, because, as you said, we have to survive. We have to eat. We have rent to pay. So any business you start, you have to look at, how will I make money? And you want to use your passion, but you have to make money. So the calculated risk comes in. There are many factors that you need to look at before you start a business so that you're not taking a chance. That's when people fail. I'm going to take a chance on this. No, you take a chance and there's a 50-50 chance you might fail or maybe, 90-10. But if you take calculated risk, you've calculated what those risks will be. And then you go, okay, am I willing to take those risks? Because there's a huge difference. If I'm going to jump off a cliff, I have to know whether it's 10 feet, 20 feet, or do I need a parachute? And so those are the things that I didn't realize I was doing that back then, but that's what I was doing. And that's just one of the OMGs of starting a business that I talk about.
Well, one of the Army things is, you identify a risk and then you put
that's right.
things in to mitigate that risk. So
yes.
I'm sure it's along the same lines as, but how do you decide how much risk are you willing to take? I know it's calculated risk, but.
Well, calculated risk means you prepare for those risks.
Gotcha. Okay.
So as you know, you're in the defense business. When you're in the defense business, you do the work and you don't get paid for 30 days. Well, for the owner, the company does the work. You have to front that money to your employees for 30 days. You don't get paid for 30 days, so that's 60 days. Okay, and sometimes there's a delay because if you're a subcontractor, you don't get paid till they get paid. Okay, 90 days. All right. So you have to have enough money 90 days before you ever get paid. I always tell people, when you start a business, you need to have at least 6 months rent, food, expenses in the bank because you're the last person to get paid.
Right.
I tease my husband all the time. When we first started, I was the operations person. My husband is majored in international finance. So he was the CFO and I was the CEO. He paid me $9 an hour.
That's a ripoff.
$9 an hour. I always tease him about that. I got paid $9 an hour. Yeah. I worked 80 hours a week.
Right. Yeah.
So
cheap labor.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So there had to come a point that, obviously, well, maybe not obviously to people who are listening, but I'm sure it was successful because you had sold the business at some point. What was the decision to take the baby that you had grown to this point and be like, you know what, let's just kind of relax now? I'm sure that's just as big a decision to do that than it was to start. It
was a really huge decision. Everything that we did in the business, we always, they say have a 5-year plan. In this DoD business, you never know what's going to happen in 5 years.
Yeah,
but
you get like a 30-day plan.
That's right, a 30-day plan. But in order to win big contracts, to be able to fulfill those contracts, you really do have to plan way ahead. So our business was doing very well. We had Tyler, my son, and he grew up in the business world. He had a suit at the age of 3. He would go everywhere with us. And we had a pretty good arrangement where I would stay home with him one day and work at home. My husband would stay home with him one day and stay at home. My mother and my father had a business also. They had a alterations and monogram business, and they would take Tyler to work with them. And so there were times when Tyler was wonderful. When I would have him and I would have a meeting, he would just kind of take some crayons and go in the corner and do his own thing. But I wouldn't abuse him and, have 5-hour meetings.
Sure.
But one day he was, he was around 4 years old, and we were standing there, and I started talking with some people, and he knew that whenever I would talk to people, that meant I was in a meeting, and so he would kind of do his own thing. But I was just talking to some friends, and he looked at me and he said, "Mom," he said, "are we in a meeting?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh." It broke my heart.
Man.
And so, Phil and I talked, and I told Phil, I said, we only have one son.
No.
Only one. He'll be 5 one time. He'll be 8 one time. He'll be 14 one time. And I said, I think it's time that we sell the business. And my husband said, well, what if you were to take a sabbatical? And because at that time, we did have a president. I had brought on a president. But it's like this. It's like, okay, you've raised your son until he's 13. And then you say, okay, Lisa, why don't you go raise my son now for me? That would be what it would feel like if I took a sabbatical from the company. I mean, you never, when you have a company, you're never not in the company.
Right.
You can be on vacation and you're still thinking about the company. It's 24 hours a day. So the business was doing very well. We were able to, the cool thing about this was I'd worked for the company called Schaefer Corporation. Wonderful, wonderful boss that was basically the CEO of the company. And he moved on and was in Washington at the time. And so they were looking for small companies to buy, basically companies with prime contracts in Huntsville. Mm-hmm. And so he sent a headhunter to look for companies. And the headhunter called me, and the president, John, who was president of Schaefer, didn't know that I had started a company. And so the headhunter said, hey, I found this company, 3D Research, contact Lisa Williams. And John said, wait a minute, is that Lisa Williams? And he goes, yeah, she's in Huntsville. So John called me and he said, hey, we're interested in buying your company. And, he said, what would it take? And I had already had an amount in my head. And, sometimes people say, well, how did you know how much? And I said, well, you look at businesses, you can kind of figure out what they're worth depending on what contracts and everything. But, my philosophy is, how much money do you need? How much money do you need to do what you want to do in life? To be able to spend time with your family, to drive the car that you want to drive, to eat the dinners you want to eat. And if you have that, you've got the right amount.
Yeah.
And it worked out, and, we sold the company. But it was basically my son, Tyler, because I wanted to be with him. I wanted to be, the most wonderful title in the world, I told you, is the title of mom. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be there for Tyler.
Well, it's great you set yourself for that opportunity to be able to do that, I'm glad it worked out the way it did. But that's not the end of your work, right?
Right. No, it's not the end.
what made you, I think I know why, but I'm going to ask you. For Soldier One, is that?
Yes.
So getting involved with helping veterans start their dreams, what made you do that? What was the first thing you did? But do you remember the first person that you helped? Whether it was with the company or if you just did it on your own? What drove you to do that?
A lot of this had to do with, we had many soldiers, military and veterans who went to Afghanistan, and many of them came back. What do you do when you come back? If you work, if you work in a tank system, or there are things that your MOS in the Army that
just doesn't translate
to the commercial world. And at that time, there were veterans that needed jobs. And so my thought was basically to start a consulting firm that would help veterans who wanted to start their own business, whether it's a lawn business, whether it's an engineering business, a commercial business. A business is a business. When you first start out, a lot of it is just the same philosophy. You got to think of 1 through 10, no matter what business it's in, no matter how big, no matter how small. So my goal there was to really help veterans who were starting their businesses. And in return, as they grew, they could hire more veterans. And at the time, I basically just gave my time to helping veterans because I wanted to, I've always, I love the soldiers. I love, the fact that, you guys go off to fight the wars so I don't have to. You guys go off, and risk your lives so I don't have to. And, how do you pay that forward? Well, you do it by helping veterans in any way I can. So that was my goal in having Soldier One Corporation. And so when when a veteran calls me up and says, "Hey, I want to think about starting a company," I'm glad to sit down and do what I can to help.
Yeah, I mean, is that how you know Nico?
Yes.
So did he reach out to you, or
he
how
did
you guys meet? Okay.
I've known him longer now than I can think. It's just, Nico and I will meet, I don't know, maybe twice a year or something, or talk twice a year.
So so this brings us full circle, because it might not make sense to people that are listening right now, but it's a small world, especially in Huntsville.
Yeah.
So we've had a guest previous, Mo Parker, which we've had him on. Very good friend of mine who owns part owner of RSI, and Nico is the other half of that. And I had no idea until we talked beforehand that Nico was involved with you like that. So I think it's pretty cool that, I know we know a lot of people, similar people, but I wasn't expecting that Nico, that you had an influence on Nico like that, which in my mind, I think that's pretty cool. So just to give everybody else an idea of why I brought Nico up.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And let me tell you, when I first met with Nico and he talked about what he wanted to do with the company, I told him, I said, "You will be successful." And I knew that because I could tell that he is very disciplined. He's motivated. He's a hard worker. He does his research, and those are a lot of the things that make a business successful. I've mentored many different companies, and I'm very brutally honest with people, because I tell them, you don't have time for me to be sweet to you. You need somebody who's brutally honest, because when you're starting a business, time is important, resources are important, and I won't be nice about it. I'll tell you if it's good or it's bad.
Yeah.
And I could tell that when I talked to Nico that he and the team, have what it takes to be successful. And I'm so proud of what you guys have done over there.
Like I was telling you before, what employee number I was, so I was kind of there at the very beginning. And, I was asked at the beginning of how much I wanted to be involved in the company and how much I just wanted to do my job.
Mm-hmm.
And
good question.
Me and a friend of mine were very, very good friends with Mo, and I didn't know Nico that well, but I knew him, so I knew it was a good matchup. And my other friend that had known Mo very well, both was working there, and we made a conscious decision to be friends before partners.
Uh-huh.
And I don't even think partners is probably not the right word, but being involved in management. I value Mo a lot more as a friend, and I wasn't willing to jeopardize that because I know how hard-headed I am. I know how hard-headed he is. And I just, I was like, "Mo, you are treating me very well as an employee. I really don't have any desire to do that, but thank you for offering." And I'm so glad I did that because, if I was going to do that, I would have done that on my own rather than be in management with him. Just, I just consider our friendship better or better off if it stayed like that. And to this day, it's been great. He's been great to me. Both of them have, and I'm very proud of where they've brought the company, especially some of the challenges they've had within the past year or two. I'm sure you probably know that, they won a contract and then just about anybody that wins a contract, it's going to be disputed. And you just have to, like you said, you have to plan for that. That's going to happen regardless if you did 100% everything right. There's going to be the company that lost. It's like, no, they cheated or whatever. I'm not saying that was the case. I'm just saying there's always going to be that company that did not win that's going to dispute it. And, the government has to hear it, has to give us due diligence Well, in doing that, it's very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be prepared financially. The company has to be financially prepared to spend lots and lots of money to fight.
Yes.
Those other companies that are trying to steal it from. Well,
Yeah.
maybe that's not the right word, but try to
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
convince the government that it should go the other way. So, but at the end, they persevered, and now it's off to the races for them. I think it ain't nothing but, and it was a huge learning experience for them. It was the first time for a lot of people that was going through that, and to come on the other side and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just going to drive them to grow even more.
Yeah. Well, any company that grows or will endure the hardships of getting there, and and it is a tough road, and some people will look at owners of companies and they just think, wow, hey, they're the ones making all the money, they're the ones that get all the the good stuff and everything, but they don't realize that as an owner, like I said, you work 24 hours.
24 hours a day, stress 24 hours a day.
Yes, you're stressed 24 hours.
Like I've said, I know Mo, and I know what he's gone through, and I know how much work, and I know how much effort, and I know much sacrifice. So, to be honest with you, I was one of those people that might have thought that a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I knew there was a lot of work involved, but to see what he has gone through, not that I would not go through that myself, but opened my eyes to what it took. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And not that I would have ever thought that he wouldn't have done it, but I wasn't expecting the amount of, he has to have like 20 different things going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And to get any, but here's another good thing about him and those guys. I can call him at any time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just about any time of the day and say, hey, I need this or I need that or whatever. Not first as a friend,
mm-hmm.
and second with anything that's going on with my current position. Hey, I need this. Got it. And that's all it takes. And I don't understand how he does that, because I mean, I know the stuff that he's got going on, and to be able to do multiple tasks like that. Well,
that's what you have to do. Yeah. It's all part of what it takes. And also, there's some sacrifices with your family too.
Sure, yeah.
There really is. And one of the things that I start off when I talk to people, when they first say, should I start a business? I always tell them, well, what does your spouse think?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, you got to have that support system.
You do,
because if you don't, it's not gonna be successful.
It will not. You'll either fail or you end up divorced.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some other stuff.
Okay.
What I want to talk about, the first time me and you met, I don't even remember the exact same time, but the first time me and you met, people are probably tired of hearing me talk about, down Ditto in the docks, but that's the first place we met. We asked you guys, I don't know if we might have seen you somewhere first, and then, down there at the docks, that's kind of our little spot.
Yeah.
So like,
wonderful spot.
We got to have those guys down there. And I don't know if I contacted you or our mutual friend contacted you, but whichever way it went, we had you down there. And I was like, wow. I'd seen a lot of bands, and I still have a lot of good bands I like to this day in Huntsville. But yours kind of special.
Oh, thank you.
And I can't really put a finger on it, what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could. I wish I could express why I'm saying that, but it's different from any other band here in Huntsville, I think. When did that start? Is that your first band that you had? Is that something that you've run from the beginning?
Oh, no.
Let's hear the background of how that happened.
So after we sold the company, I said, I'll give myself a year to get my chops back on guitar and everything. And so Jedi was not my first band. My first band was Crossfire. I at that time Craigslist was popular. Sure. So I went through Craigslist to look to see who was looking for a guitar player. And there was a group that was just starting, and they were looking for a guitar player. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go audition. I know I'm not going to get it, but I'm scared, I'm nervous, but I got to start somehow, and it's okay. I won't get it. I'm going to fail, but I'll know what to expect. And
you know what to work on.
Well, I know what to work on.
Yeah.
So I went and auditioned, and they called me and said, hey, we'd like for you in the band. And I think what it was because I played guitar and I could sing. And so, it's kind of a multi-person. And so that was my first band. And we did that for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years. And then I decided I really wanted to move on to something different. And so then I went to Craigslist again, and there was Jeff Hemphill, who was a Afghanistan veteran, who started a band called Jedi. And people always say, how did the name Jedi get to, have that name? So I auditioned for the band, and they accepted me. But the history of why Jedi is called Jedi is, at the beginning, Jeff Hemphill was the band leader, a great singer. He worked CID here in town and has since moved to where his family lives, and he's basically working like border patrol and doing the hard job of keeping us safe at the border. But Jeff was the J, and another gentleman by the name of Eric was in the band. And then there was Dan, so that was the Jed, and the other guitar player, which I never met, but he was the one that I was replacing. He was blind, thus the eye. So that's how Jedi came along. Yeah. But then, so we put the band, we had the band, and then Jeff was reassigned and went to Arizona. And I told him, I said, hey, you can have the Jedi band name or whatever. He said, no, it belongs here in Huntsville. So I just kept it going. And we've gone through some iterations, throughout the years. But Jedi has been together for about 10 years now. Different iterations. But, I'm just very fortunate to be in a band with such talented players that are in the band right now. Yeah. And I love playing music with them. They're all wonderful people. Johnny is our drummer. He's an SES out at NASA, works on the Artemis program. Brett's the other guitar player. He's a software engineer. Scott is a software engineer for I3. He is an amazing singer, bass player. But I really am honored that you said that we have something that's different and special. And what we try to do is when we play an event or a gig, we really try to bring the people there with us. Like, well, you came up and played with us.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up.
That was
well, now that I'm thinking about it as you're talking, and by me saying this, it's going to sound derogatory towards other people, and it's not. It's just different. It's more professional. If that makes that makes any sense at all. I don't mean that because all my other friends that are in different bands. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Maybe that's not the right word. More organized.
Well, we are.
Maybe I don't want to.
We are very. Very organized. I'm the logistics person in the band, and we're very organized. When we always say, just like sound check is at 6:30. Everybody's on stage. 6:30, we're ready. We have practice at 5:00 on Sunday. Everybody's there 5:00 on Sunday. We are professionals.
Sure.
And it's because we respect each other. So, if we say we're going to do something, everybody's like, let's do it. Because if somebody doesn't fulfill their responsibility, they're not showing respect to the rest of the band.
Sure.
And we all really do respect each other. We encourage each other. We challenge each other. We really try to make each other better musicians because, sometimes they'll pick a song that I'm like, oh man, because I'm a guitar player first and then I'm a keys player. So the keys, I have to spend more time, but they'll pick a song and I'm like, oh man, I got to spend more time on it.
Can we get somebody else in the band?
I know, really. But I love that because I'm challenged to learn something new and different. So when we play for you or for anyone, again, it is showing respect for us to show up on time, to be professionals, so that when you ask Jedi to do a gig, that's all you got to do.
Mhm.
You don't have to worry about anything else. And I think that's what makes people really happy to have us, because they know, okay, if you get Jedi, you don't have to worry about anything. They'll show up, they'll play, they'll have everything ready, and that's the way we function, And then when we're there, we have a great time. And I mean, okay, so, Trish and her husband, we got to know her just playing gigs.
Sure.
And now, they're the sweetest people,
Yep.
and they're our friends.
Mm-hmm.
And what a great way to meet people who come to see you play, and then they're your friends. And that's just a great perk that we have, is that we have so many friends through playing.
Yeah. I think also, on the professional level, I'm the professional of hiring bands in this city, because we've had so many people at different places, just because we enjoy, not only the music that they're playing, but the people individually themselves, and you get to have them to yourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of how the way we see it. I can tell, I can ask people who's coming and who's not, and who I don't want there. You know what I mean? And then when you go to, some scenes with, some of these bands, you don't even want to go in that atmosphere. I've only had a problem with a couple different, one band in particular where obviously I'm not going to mention their name, but I had them come in and I knew them. And it was like 3 months later. Well, when they came, it was that person in a totally different band with a bunch of different people with a bunch of different music that wasn't the band. And when they got here, I'm like, well, where's blah, blah, blah? And he's like, oh, no, that's this guy. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, who's that? Well, that's blah, blah. And they start playing. I'm like, what's going on here? So, but, all the other bands, so I'm going to get it out here. They're all professional. It's just something I noticed with you guys more. Like you said, everything on time. It's like a clock.
Yeah, thank you.
So.
Thank you. And again, it's to show respect. It really is.
Well, I'm out of questions. Not that I have more questions, but I don't want to take any more of your time, because you've welcomed us into your house. And I was just wondering if there's anything that I've brought up or something that I haven't brought up that you want to talk about.
I think so I love to share this message when I can, because it is something that I am very passionate about. And that is, again, being an American is a wonderful thing. I live my life to the fullest. I strive for what I call BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. I mean, why not? And I just want to encourage everyone out there to, have those big, hairy, audacious goals, whatever they are. I mean, this is the country to do it in. This is the place. I think everybody has gifts, special gifts. It could be you're a talented musician. It could be you make people laugh. It could be you make people feel comfortable. It could be, you can, it's about history, or you just have something that makes people want to listen to you and learn from you. But, I have found that my special gift is what I call the eyes of opportunity. Because I was born in a communist country where there would not have been a lot of opportunities for someone like me. And here I am in America. I was able to get a college education and to, be an engineer and to be the CEO of a company. Oh my gosh, there's no way that would have happened in Vietnam. I play in a band with great people, and I get to, share experiences with great friends. And it's because I was born in a country where there are not many opportunities. And here I am in this wonderful country where there are many opportunities. I always tell people, you stick me in a dark room and I will find an opportunity, because my eyes are open and I always will see it. We have that. All of us have that gift. I just would like to make everybody aware of that gift and to not waste it and to cling on to it and to open your eyes. The freedom that we have in this country is like no other freedom in any other country. So you have this amazing son over here that does all these wonderful things that get us to be able to talk to each other and to get it out there. You know, in this country, we tell our kids, when you grow up, you can be anything you want to be. I would tell you that in other countries, parents cannot say that to their children. You know, you can look at your amazing son over there and you can say, go to college and do amazing things. You have your whole life ahead of you. Not every parent can say that to their child in other countries, but we can say that in this country. Yep. And my son is a great example of that too. You know, he's worked hard. I call him my Renaissance man. He's a great cook. He's a musician. He's worked very hard. He's in med school right now, which I'm glad because now I'm going to have a doctor in the family, which he'll be able to take care of me.
Yeah,
and
never have to go back in on your.
Yeah, that's right.
Waiting 2 hours.
That's exactly right. I'm going to call him up and just say, you know.
So my father. Sorry to cut you off. My mom's husband is a doctor, and it was not my biological doctor, but it was very, very nice to call him and have him be able to write you a script. You know, hey, what's your symptoms? I'll send you a script. Go to Walgreens and pick it up. So a lot of my family took advantage of that. So
yeah.
So having your son, that's going to be.
It's
especially the age that we're getting. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel older every day. So yeah, having that in the family, that's definitely a plus.
Yeah, he's great. He'll call me and say, "Hey, I got a new workout program for you, Mom," and so I take it and I go to the gym and you know and work it. You know, so I just
it's a great message, and matter of fact, that's one of the questions I asked you at the very beginning is, you know, Americans not taking advantage of, you know, or taking for granted what they have here. And you see it all the time. And I'm, especially this time and age of complaining about this, complaining about that, you know, yeah, I get it. You know, I complain just as much as anybody else, but as you know, there's opportunities for you to make stuff better. Is it going to happen overnight? No, probably not. But any kind of effort that you put into something, eventually you're going to get something back out of it. It's just depending on which avenue that you want to go, you know? So I totally agree with you. I've been to every country that you can think of for the most part. I've been to more countries than I have United States here in the United States. Yeah. And I can tell you from experience that, in my opinion, there's no other place that has the opportunity that the United States does. So I share your sentiment there.
Yeah. And thank you for what you've done in your service.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Oh. All right. You ready to end this?
Okay.
Oh, do you want to give your information out to anywhere? So if somebody wants some help with the business, or are you still, and we can cut this part out if you want to, but do you want to go into that?
Well,
are you still doing that kind of?
I'm always happy to help, anyone who's starting a business. Okay. Yeah. But you know, be ready for the harsh truth.
Right. Yeah. So if if you type in Lisa Williams, Huntsville, you're going to find a way to you. So that'll test how much you really want to start your business, you know.
That's right.
To try to find you.
Yes.
The information out there, let's see what you do with it, right?
There are definitely ways to contact me. You can contact me through Facebook, Instagram, contact me through the Jedi Facebook page. Yep. Come see a gig. Yeah. Say hello.
That's another thing. I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. Where can we, I guess on your Jedi Facebook page is where you can find your schedule of where you're going to be playing and when?
Yeah.
Okay. How far out do you guys keep log of, is it like a month schedule, or do you have like multi-months on that on Facebook, or what's that schedule like?
Well, we actually have an entire year's program out there. Okay. So come see us and you know, say hello.
Pick a date.
Yeah, pick a date, and you need to come back out and play with us.
Yeah, well, I gotta practice a little bit. It's been a while. All right, thank you so much to you and your husband for having us out here. Beautiful place. Didn't mention that, but we will definitely see each other in the future.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. We'll see you.